Hello, my name is Tara Kachaturoff, and I'm the host of Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. This week we have as our special guest the president and founder of PALS International, Ms. Brenda Arbeláez. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. We're really excited to have you as a guest because of what you do. But before we tell people what you do, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name, I was born in Colombia, and I was raised there and educated there, and I got a teaching degree for one of the best religious schools over there. I was in a very strict environment, in a boarding school, and I am very grateful now for all the discipline I got, because it had helped me tremendously in the United States. I got a degree there, and I started working there, first in a private girls' school, and then I went to work in a German school and got married. And when we were there, a friend of the family invited us to come to the United States for a 2-year stay. And we didn't have children, so we thought, why not? Learn the language, the culture, see another country. I never dreamt of that, but the opportunity came and we took it. So we came for 2 years, and it was fascinating to be here, and we met a lot of wonderful people that encouraged us to come back if we could. So in the meantime, I got pregnant, I went back home, I did everything right. I had to return with this return back home, stayed there for 5 years, got pregnant with my second daughter, but we were able, because of my son being born here, in those days that was all right to apply to come back because of him.
Oh, okay.
My first husband did have a working visa, but that was not enough. But because of my son, so he brought us back.
So when you originally came here, did you visit Michigan? Was this the first place you came?
Yes, because my mother's friends was here.
Okay.
So that's why we chose, because people ask me all the time, why Michigan? Why Detroit? But I had been very grateful, because I like Michigan and I like Detroit. So, and my son was born here, so I better like it, but I do, really. And I don't even complain about the weather. I love the seasons. So,
good for you.
Yeah.
I still complain about the weather.
Yeah. So we came back, and then when I went back to Colombia, I worked there as a teacher again for 5 years in a British school. Then we got the opportunity to come back with a resident visa. Mm-hmm. So we came back and we started all over again. And the second time around was difficult, because with 2 children, no family, was very difficult to start all over again.
When you came back here, at that time, is that when you started PALS International?
Not there, not right away.
Not right away.
I didn't know what to do. I could work now, and now I have a resident visa, but then I didn't know what to do. But being a teacher, what else do you? I started putting ads in the church paper. Mm-hmm. My children were going to Catholic school, so I started teaching catechism and Spanish classes for very little children. And I have the Spanish club going with my own children and my friends' children. And then I started working with Wayne County Community College, teaching adults and finding work in the Dominican High. And then I did realize a big company was hiring people to teach Spanish that you didn't need to speak a lot of English. So I thought that was wonderful. I mean, you were not allowed to speak English. So I got there and I started working there, and I started meeting corporate America. Mm-hmm. People who really needed to, for business reasons, to learn foreign languages. So I loved it, and I met wonderful people that later on encouraged me to continue and to open my own business.
So what does PALS stand for?
Pan American Languages and Services.
Okay.
That was the initial name, was Pan American Language Service. Then when we started doing more than one, we made it plural, and then we realized that the acronym was PALS, and Americans like acronyms, short, sweet words to say. Right. So people encouraged us to do that, and we say, well, that's wonderful. So that's how we, in 1990, we changed it to PALS, because it was shorter for people to say it and to use it. And then international, because by then we were doing many languages and much more. So it was applied because we were doing China and Japan and Korea, and people associated me with Spanish and Mexico. So we needed to change that image.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the types of services and things that you offer at PALS and the types of businesses that you offer them to? Because you're basically a corporate-oriented firm offering services. So what types of things do you offer?
We offer language training. Of course, most languages, especially the ones that are needed most. Right now, English as a second language is actually the biggest, and then German, because mainly Daimler Chrysler, and all the suppliers that come here because of Daimler Chrysler. And we have French, Italian, Spanish. We teach Swedish, Russian, Polish, all the other languages that are in need, but not in quantities.
But English as a second language is a significant part of your business?
It's very much. It's amazing how English as a second language is one, because a lot of people bring people here, and even if they speak the language, they want to improve it, and then the spouses or the children need help.
Okay.
So we do a lot of that as well.
And besides the language training, what other types of services do you offer?
I was very proud to combine the language and the culture, because I know those two go hand in hand, and I didn't know how, but I was fortunate to develop for Ford Motor Company a cross-cultural program. They asked for that, and I was very proud to be able to do it, and that was the answer, to combine language and culture, which people sometimes believe that language is the most important thing, you need to go overseas, but if you are not going to live there, only do business, actually the culture is much important. And as we talk about it, culture is the door, the language is just the window. And language takes time to learn, but the culture you can learn in 1 day, 2, 3 days, cross-culture programs that are 8 hours with wonderful experts, what to do, what not to do, and how to conduct business overseas to be successful.
If we were looking at somebody getting language training who wanted to be fairly proficient, maybe more in the listening skills than maybe the speaking skills, how would it compare the amount of hours of language training for somebody learning Spanish versus a much more difficult language like German?
Oh, no, it's all depends on the individual and their background, and if they took it at high school, or they never took it, or they never heard of. But it's 350, 500, 600, 900, depending on the language. It's more hours, more dedication, and it needs a lot of discipline, and you need to keep it up. But otherwise, you don't do anything about it yourself. Going to classes, we try to make the student learn whatever he's supposed to learn in the classroom, but if they don't work extra, it's very difficult, and it takes a long time. The beautiful thing is that everybody else in the world appreciate when an American comes to their country and they are able to greet and say things in their language is very much appreciated, and just the idea that they're making an effort is very appreciated for foreigners.
As long as we can get past the embarrassment of even opening our mouth and speaking the things that we learned at a class.
But they don't criticize you, they help you, they are very pleased that you make an effort. That's usually the case. We also do translations and interpretation services and voiceovers. And translation is, I believe, is going to be the future of my company, because that is a must. And companies are realizing the importance of translating everything they have, manuals and even memos that they need to send to overseas. So from very small driver's license, marriage certificates, documents, but to big, incredible, huge manuals, that is happening, and that is very important. It is something that we are doing very well as well.
And one other area, if you haven't explored it already, is translating websites, because I spend a lot of time online in that internet world, and more businesses have the English site, and they also have one that's available in Spanish. And to me, that's just a wonderful wonderful business opportunity right there, because so many companies want to expand to the world, and I think Spanish is the second most popular language.
That's correct.
In the world, and a
mhm.
lot of business opportunities can be gained if you have the way to communicate with people online in their own language.
And
So
we're doing that
you're
as
doing
well.
the websites,
but
yeah.
great, but thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Thank God we are doing that as well. We're
That's
offering.
a lifetime of work right there.
Right, that's what I say, that's my future right now.
I'd like to just segue a little bit away from, we'll get back on the conversation about you as an entrepreneur, but I know people really want to know some of the do's and don'ts about working with particular countries. And there's 3 countries that we have a lot of connection with here in the Michigan area, and that would be Germany, Mexico, and China. So I'd like to just hear about a few do's and don'ts for each of those countries when it comes to doing business. Let's start with Germany.
All right, first with Germans, you don't use first names.
Okay, no first names.
And also titles. You have to be very formal with them, and you have to use titles.
Titles meaning the title of their title for work, or Mr. or Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is extremely important for them, and the thing is, you can work with a German for 20 years or more, and you continue to use the title. Mm-hmm. And I did work in a German school, and the principal name, it was always the same, and I couldn't. The relationship is very difficult personal relationships are very difficult to get into. Mm-hmm. It. And it takes years to accomplish, and then they will let you know when to use first names.
Okay.
That means a lot if they do it, but usually you can work with a colleague for many years and it doesn't happen. It's extremely formal.
That's interesting.
So Herr and Frau and Fraulein is very proper to use.
Any other do's or don'ts for Germany?
Be punctual.
Be punctual,
and not on time, a little bit ahead, sometimes 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's extremely important as well. And Germans are very dedicated, and they like it, their way, but it's fun to work with them as well.
Oh, absolutely. I worked at a German automotive company, and I found the experience incredible. Very punctual, everything to the T, very good communication with management to subordinate. I mean, it was really an incredible experience. The way they managed the company was phenomenal. I had not seen anything or experienced anything like that in any of the U.S. companies I actually worked for. So I'm glad I had an experience of that culture. It was very unique.
Very.
How about the country of Mexico? I know a lot of your work is dealing in Spanish, but with Mexico, we do a tremendous amount of business with Mexico in all different industries. What are some do's and don'ts when it comes to dealing with Mexico and the culture of Mexico?
You have to establish personal relationships.
Okay, so it's kind of the opposite.
And here you go. You can do business and personal relationships, and don't talk about business, talk about you.
Okay.
Talk about your family, talk about your children, take pictures. If you don't have children, if you have a dog, take pictures of your dog. And try to learn the culture, visit the sites, the cathedrals, the churches, the museums. Mexicans are so proud of their history. That is extremely important. And about family, it's just, they want to go with you and eat and drink, but they don't want to talk about business. Business is not done. First, they need to like you and get to know you. Then you can get a fantastic business. And
it really is one of the basic premises of business. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you don't let people in, it's a little harder. So I like that part about getting to know people from that level. Because you learn a lot about people by getting to meet their family and even their dog.
I remember a student that he didn't have children, but he has 2 dogs, and they were on his desk here at the bank, and then he had to talk about his dogs, and people will ask him about it.
That's great. Any other business do's when it comes to Mexico? Things that you should be doing as an American, visiting within the culture, doing business with other Mexican businessmen and women?
Well, it's a lot of, they have to go there, they have to learn about the culture. It's not, they look so wonderful and so easy to work with, but really they are not. And they have their values and their priorities. And if the Americans don't know what to do, It's like between the country. Mexico actually is 3 different regions, the north, the central, and the south, and depending on where you are going. Let's give you an example. If you want to have even a Mexican put a manager in a plant, if you choose a person from Mexico City and you put this manager in the north, that's not good, because they have regional situations or competition between them, and you don't do that. If you are going to be working in the north, you have someone from that area. You don't bring a person from the capital to run the business.
That's interesting.
But if they don't know, they had done it too many times.
Are the cultures different between the north, the central, and the south?
Yes.
In what ways do they differ?
Most Mexican
Dialectical?
from the no,
Not
nothing to do
dialectical.
with the
Okay.
languages. The culture of the country.
Literally the
The
culture.
people from the north are very much looking to the United States. They have very good ethics, and they are very hardworking people. And of course, Mexico City is the capital. It's a cosmopolitan city, and it's incredible. But they have their own culture. But they believe they are the best. So people from the other states don't really agree with that. And there is a lot of different issues going between them that an American will not know unless he learns, studies, and finds out all these different things.
Are there differences in formality in terms of dealing with business folks in the north versus another region?
Yeah, I think the north will be more relaxed, yeah.
The north will be more relaxed?
Yeah.
So it's much more conservative the further south you go into Mexico?
Especially the capital, yes.
Oh, okay.
And as I say, dressing well is extremely important, let's say in the capital.
Okay.
Ties and not doing all the different things that we do here, being very relaxed. There's a lot of issues with that. Being very well presented is extremely important for the Mexican. But in the north, it's a little bit more relaxed.
In terms of the businesswomen there, is their attire very formal as well, like business suits, conservative dress?
For women, yes.
Okay.
For women, and in Mexico City, again, then in the north is more relaxed, but it's still, yeah.
But regardless, getting to know people on that personal level is a part of the culture in general.
Extremely important.
Okay.
And getting into a relationship in Mexico with a Mexican person is much easier than in Germany, for example, or in China, in comparison with these 3 cultures.
Any other do's and don'ts for doing business in Mexico?
Well, that I can think of, not really, but I mean, it's a lot of different things. Usually the contracts are verbal contracts, and it's your word against a written contract.
Okay.
If a Mexican gives you their word, you better believe it.
Okay,
that's
interesting.
That is very important.
So the verbal, it's all very personal on their end.
Exactly.
Yeah. So verbal contract is a contract.
If I trust you and you trust me, that's the way it is. The paperwork can be done because Americans need it,
right.
But the most important thing is that I trust you.
Excellent. That's very, very interesting. Okay, how about China? You know, China is an economic force that's becoming bigger and bigger, and there's more opportunities here, even in Michigan, to do business in China and vice versa. What kinds of things do we need to know about doing business in China?
Well, in comparison with the other 2, in China, you can develop good business relationship, but not a personal relationship.
Okay.
So you can see the difference in the cultures.
Right.
But it's very important to spend a lot of time with them and to get to know them, and in order to develop that business relationship. But getting into inner circle, they call it, is almost impossible. You don't get there, especially if you don't speak the language. But again, learning basic Mandarin will help a lot because you get to know so much.
So Mandarin Chinese is the largest of the languages?
Yeah, they have Cantonese as well, and other, but Mandarin is the biggest and is the official language. And they should learn Mandarin. Again, you are not going to learn the full language, no, but just to be polite. And by learning 60 hours or 100 hours is nothing, but it's kindergarten. But that gives you a way to understand those people better. And again, they appreciate it a lot. But I was fortunate to go with my husband to China for 3 weeks. And I traveled around a lot of different places. And it was amazing what I saw. And we took a boat on the Yangtze River, and we were on the boat for 7 days, and we were able to see wonderful things. and the difference between the young people and the old people, and how the situation is changing tremendously. And if you go to Shanghai, you just don't believe what you're seeing. It's an incredible, huge city, and the government is supporting all this change. And you have the support of the government, and it's growing. I mean, yes, not people have this idea there are bicycles. I mean, there are bicycles, but it's so many cars and so many car accidents now because there are not enough people to teach these Chinese how to drive.
Right.
But it's beautiful what is going on. It's just to see the progress, and everybody's learning English. We visit schools. Children's schools, and they are already reciting the alphabet in English.
That's great.
See, but that's what is happening there,
Right.
but it's not happening here. We are starting it, and I believe it's an effort to start teaching children Chinese because they are the ones who can start at the right time. But for us, it's just too hard to learn.
It's a difficult language.
Very.
I've looked into it.
Well, speaking it is not that difficult, because it's monosyllable a lot.
But reading it.
But reading it or writing is impossible.
Any other do's or don'ts about doing business in China?
When I was there in business, I was served warm water.
Warm water.
And I couldn't understand, and I tasted it. I said, it's warm, didn't say anything. But then later on, I was so intrigued why that happened. And I finally, my Chinese expert explained it to me, and I say, it's because if you want to start a relationship, how can you get cold water?
Right.
Think about it. You want to start with something warm.
Right.
So they give you warm water. Also, by the way, they have to boil the water
Right.
for safety reasons. But the idea to give you warm water makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So
it's really interesting talking about these three different examples, is that it does take more time with other cultures to build relationships. A lot of people here in the United States think that, I meet you today, let's do business tomorrow, but that really isn't the way it is in other parts of the country, other parts of the world rather. It's about getting to know people, which to me, I like that way. I like to get to know people over time, even if it takes a year or two before you move to the next step. I think there's something really nice about that and adding them to your circle of friends or acquaintances or possible business acquaintances. So thanks for sharing all that interesting information about these countries. I find it fascinating.
It is.
And all the more reason why people really do need to engage firms like PALS International to learn these things, because you can't just go there and be caught off guard. You have to know what you're doing in order to do it right from the beginning, because you only get one chance to make a good first impression.
You're absolutely right.
You can't be doing the wrong things. That was great. What about your entrepreneurial inclinations? Did you come from an entrepreneurial family?
In a way, my father was independent, doing a lot of business and commerce and selling stuff, and always looking for something. My mother did the same. It was a way to survive, actually. My mother will go to different islands and countries and buys things for women to sell to women: jewelry, creams, clothing. And then she was very good. She was excellent. She will give you credit, but she will charge you quite a bit too from the original price. So that was very good. But I didn't have that. I just didn't. The financial part was very difficult for me, and to charge or to put a price on something. But just when I came here was more my desire to teach people about us, because sometimes you feel not discrimination, but it's mainly ignorance about who you are. Just because you look different or you behave different or you speak with an accent, people assume you are foreigner or you are ignorant. And that I didn't like. So I was trying to prove a point.
Do you think people still feel that way nowadays?
Oh, yeah.
Really? If you speak with an accent, they'll assume a certain level of
Oh,
education?
well, it depends how well educated the person. Thank God Michigan is much more educated because of all the companies and all the people who travel abroad. And as soon as I meet someone who has been outside of the United States, it's just great. We can talk about anything. It's easier. But when a person never been outside of Michigan, that is totally a different story.
Right.
And I have employees of mine that were that way, and they work in the company, and they say, Brenda, you don't know, I used to be that person. not anymore. I had learned so much in your company, they say. Girls that had gone through college, and they say, I learned more here at Pulse in a year than 4 years in college, because they are not exposed to
There's
what we are
so much.
exposed in our company. So it's just fascinating. My son is grateful of that. My daughter is very grateful of that, because you will believe that, they don't know much about Europe or Asia especially.
It opens up so much in your life when you do business with people overseas. I mean, I hired somebody that's helping me on a lot of projects, and she's in Switzerland. And I've known her quite a while, but now we have a business doing something together. And it's opened up a whole new world. And I'm meeting more and more people in Europe and other parts of the world, a lot in Australia, a lot in Eastern Europe. And it's really broadening my horizons, and I couldn't imagine not doing it and not having that global perspective.
And then when you look at and talk with those people, they believe in what we believe.
They do.
It's pretty much the same with different situations here and there, but basically.
We're all pretty much the same. There's not a lot of difference. What is some of your advice to other entrepreneurs? What kind of advice would you give to people who are starting up a business or are in the throes of being an entrepreneur right now and doing the struggling, which many entrepreneurs go through at different times? What's your advice to entrepreneurs?
Well, if you will be able to have a mentor, if you find a mentor beforehand, that will be wonderful. I didn't have one.
Okay.
But that's a very good advice.
That is great advice.
Oh, you need it. But I didn't have a mentor, but even my former students were pushing me and encouraging me. So in a way, they were my mentors.
Do you have a mentor now?
I have a board of directors.
Excellent.
And I have now mentors. I mean, all of them are my mentors, and I have another guy helping me with the financials, and this is a wonderful addition, and he is a mentor as well. So I had been very fortunate to meet the people, and one of my weaknesses that I don't know a lot about business, but one of my strengths is that I ask for help.
Right.
Because if you don't ask, you don't get it.
Right.
But I don't have a problem telling anyone that I don't know about this.
So,
Can you help me?
So getting a mentor and being open to asking for help.
And you get it, because
That's right.
people
People
are
do wanna help.
wonderful, and people love my business the way you did.
Oh yeah, I absolutely fell in love with your business when I
Exactly,
found it.
you were so excited. I was
Absolutely.
very, fascinated by your attitude about my business, and then that's the people I find, and they say they want to help me because they think it's so great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do that? Oh, what a great thing! So they want to help me.
Well, the key thing about your business was that when I came across it, I was very impressed with your background and coming here from Colombia, and then doing what you do, bringing the world together. And that's what you do by teaching people other languages, by teaching them about the culture, and you're doing it at a place that makes a difference. In corporate America. Corporate America has more power than any government will ever have, and they have the way to make things happen. Brenda, I'd like to thank you for being a guest on the show today. It was wonderful to learn about you and your company, PALS International.
And I have a wonderful staff that is supporting me and helping me in my weak area, so I have to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara, so much for inviting me.
Absolutely.
It has been fun.
If you'd like more information about Michigan Entrepreneur or about PALS International and Brenda Arbeláez, please visit our website at www.michiganentrepreneurtv.com. Please consider joining us again in the future when we interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.